I am stuck sharing the same bed with my crush for the rest of my high school. Part 1. The following story contains mentions of domestic abuse. Please listen with caution. At the age of 12, I decided to run away from my home. Obviously, kids from bad families end up in bad situations all the time. Nothing new about it. And since I was not the first kid to witness my parents being horrible to each other, I assumed that I definitely was not the first kid to run away from my home either. Antoine Doinel had done that, why couldn't I? I know that wasn't solid reasoning, Antoine was a fictional character after all, but are these fictional characters not a product of society? I know I am a product of society, even though I want to be anything but. So, at the ripe age of 12, I decided I would run away from my home. And so I did. I hid in the little park just 15 minutes away from my school and some 45 minutes away from my home. I had nothing to eat, so I was crying by the time the clock hit 6. Even then, I was determined not to return home. I spent an hour sleeping in the bush I was hidden in until I heard quite a rustle that I knew did not happen because of a human. I removed myself from there and ended up stumbling right into a lanky kid. And it was Andrew, my future best friend and crush. Throughout my time out of the safety of the school, I had met several creepy adults, so it was a welcome relief for a kid, seemingly of my age, to take an interest in me. He asked me where my parents were, and when I didn't answer, he grabbed my arm and coaxed me into bringing me to his parents. After that failed attempt at running away from my parents, I was returned home several hours later. Even so, I couldn't forget the warm embrace of Andrew's parents. I knew I wanted to be in their lives, so I decided to cope with troubles at home. And that was how I was here, 5 years later, next to Andrew. You don't have to end up like your mom, you know. Andrew tells me and sticks a cigarette in his mouth. I hush at him, remind him that we're still on the school grounds, and he grins back at me. I will stop smoking the moment I turn 18. Don't worry, we are nearly adults. But still not adults, I tell him and lean against the wall. I don't want to end up like either of them. I continue as if I haven't already said this thing a million times by now, and as if Andrew hasn't already heard that a million times by now. If I ended up like either of them, just shoot me, alright? What are cops there for anyway? Andrew narrows his eyes on me. You have already given up on the police. I shrug at him. Shouldn't I? When I become a cop, Andrew says and turns to me, his thin frame hovering over me in a way that nearly reminds me of many movie stars doing the same to their lovers. And I flush in shame, eager to put that thought away for the rest of the day. I will not give you a single reason to doubt the police. Several hurried footsteps rush in our direction, and I cannot help but grin as Andrew quickly stubs the cigarette under his shoe and dusts his clothes off. I hope so, Andrew, because the irony isn't lost on me at all. I tell him and giggle some more as he grabs my hand and drags me away from that horrible place. We stop right in front of the school grounds, still waiting for the last bell to ring. 10 more minutes and we will be out of here. As Andrew leans against the tree, I cannot help but look outside the school grounds at the rowdy college students standing on the other side of the road. One in particular catches my eye, and I do not know if I catch his eye or not, but Andrew pulls me in a side hug, his warm breath hitting my bare neck and reminding me of all the reasons I try to stay away from him, and tells me, I hope you know you can pull better than that. And I grin at him. I hope so too. Will you come stay the night at my place? Andrew asks and grabs both of our bags in his hand. I fractured mine over something a few days earlier, so I'm basically useless right now. Is that alright? Andrew looks at me as if I have grown a second head. Why shouldn't it be? I shrug at him. I will be there. Andrew grins at me and drags me along with himself, whispering nonsense as the college student, whom I've had my eyes on, shouts something behind me. Andrew and I have become best friends, even though we met some 4 or 5 years ago. But in all these years, we have seen a lot, so I'm not very surprised that we have come so close. And how we met is interesting as well. Although I do feel embarrassed each time at the thought of recollecting that part. I cannot help but feel glad that I did that. I feel glad that my parents fought that day, that my dad picked up a bat and hit me with it so much that day before I didn't even want to see his face. Because if not for those moments, I wouldn't have met Andrew. As bad as the circumstances sound, I really, truly am glad. A few days later. Of course, that also means that I passionately feel for Andrew. even if our conversations often remind me of where I belong. We are at Andrew's place, and he had just cleaned off my newest wounds. Thankfully, his parents aren't home yet, so I don't have to worry about them badgering me to just ask for their help. They have been doing that for years, and after one particular incident, I have kind of started avoiding them at length. Now, whenever I meet them, I tell them that it's alright at home. Not good, but not entirely bad either. But I cannot do the same when it comes to Andrew. Sometimes he does not even need to see if I was hurt physically to know that something happened at home, and probably that's why I feel so passionately about him. You know, right, cops are just one call away. Andrew comments, sitting next to me and staring at me as if I haven't already heard that one in the longest time. My mom doesn't want that, I tell him. She's grown comfortable with the circumstances, and besides, I stop and shrug. It's not like it happens every day. Andrew rightfully looks outraged, though he controls his emotions. Do you even know what you sound like, Cooper? I couldn't care less. I tell him again, shrug, and then drop on his bed. Besides, we have nowhere else to go if that happens. That house is his. You can always stay here with us, your mom and you. Easy for you to say. I mutter and suck on my bottom lip when he sucks in a breath. Anyways, let's not ruin our night. You were telling me something. Andrew looks like changing the topic is the last thing he wants to do, but he follows my suggestion anyway. We are both tired, and I'm pretty sure no one wants to go through the sob story all over again. Over and over again for the 9th time now. I was watching something, and I couldn't help but think that I want to be a cop so bad I might even die if I don't become one. The same old story. I grin at him. Andrew scowls at me and then lies closer to me. I will be able to help you. Why do you want to help me so much? Because you're my best friend. He tells me, his eyes shining brightly as he looks right at me. And because no one should go through what you two are going through, even if that is wishful thinking. Cooper, he says and then stops after taking a long breath. You must know how helpless I feel about this. And right then, I know I have a massive crush on him. I feel the same. I tell him and then turn to my side. Good night, Andrew. Will you not eat? Mom left something for us. I'm not hungry. I just want to sleep. A few days later. Of course, I know my feelings for Andrew will bring nothing but trouble. For starters, Andrew is my best friend, and I'm not going to threaten our friendship when I don't even know what I feel for him is genuine or a helpless want for a safe space away from my abusive household. I am not going to threaten anything about us when I'm not even sure of that. Secondly, Andrew has never given any hint to me about him being anything but straight. His last relationship was with an older girl, and although they broke up within months, Andrew still gushes to me about having the best time of his life with her. Although, I admit that I do feel that he doesn't sound as confident when he makes such claims. During those moments, his voice stutters and he acts like he hasn't ever touched a girl before. And while those moments give me hope, I cannot deny the fact that he has dated 3 girls in the last year alone. I would be stupid to do that. So what do I do when I know I cannot make it with Andrew? I try to find someone else who can be with me. And that's how I came across Tate, the same college student I noticed a week or so ago outside of the school grounds. On Friday of the upcoming week, when Andrew is busy with our homeroom teacher over discussions about the latest assignment, he is still standing outside of the school, a cigarette between his fingers just like Andrew has. The familiarity of that act makes me feel comfortable somehow. How old are you? Tate asks when he comes to me. Soon going to be 18, I tell him, craning to look over his taller frame. Tate grins and extends his hand towards me. I'm Tate. I take his hand and cannot help but draw similarities between his hand and my dad's. I'm Cooper. I study here. Nice, Cooper. Will you go out with me? I nod at him, charmed that such a handsome man has taken an interest in me. And he's older. Surely he knows the ways of the world better than I do. I give him my number and tell him that I'm going to meet him in the evening. Tate grins at me and then waves me away, his broad frame swallowed by the swarm of students leaving the school premises. I smile and think, I cannot wait to tell Andrew about this. A couple days later. Obviously, Andrew is not very pleased with the news. I told you the first day you can pull better than that guy. Tate. I tell him and then pull up Tate's Instagram. Look, he's cool and sexy. And older. Andrew adds with some disdain in his voice. There's no way he's younger than 22. He's a pedo. You're barely 17. We are not telling anyone about this, and I am past 17. I tell him. Doesn't change the fact that it's wrong. Andrew mutters and tries to focus on the class. He lasts some 5 minutes before he turns to me. You remember, right? We are going to the movies this weekend? Or have you made plans already? I stare at him guiltily, and he pursues his lips before turning around. A few days later. My first date with Tate goes, well, at least in more ways than one. I was already late to it, given Andrew's less than enthusiastic efforts to send me away right into Lion's Den, as he liked to call Tate. But I told him that I was happy and hopeful that it would go well, and at that, Andrew sighed and patted my head like he always does. Just be careful, he told me before pushing a pepper spray in my tote bag. If he tries anything funny, tell him your best friend is a martial arts expert, and he wouldn't take a minute to break all the bones in his body. You aren't a martial arts expert, I replied. Andrew grinned at me then. He doesn't know that. And while walking towards the cinema hall that Tate and I agreed upon, I cannot help but wonder if Andrew knows that he looks anything but physically active. Sure, he has God-given height at such a young age, and sure, he has broad shoulders to match his lanky frame, but he is still your typical high schooler. And Tate, well, he looks like anything but a student. And all the days that Tate and I have flirted and talked over the phone, I have never felt like he is a student. He sounds more like your average man who's taken an oath to take nothing but himself seriously. I didn't think you'd come. Tate informs me and holds my hand before pulling me into the hall. You should know I was growing nervous as hell. Why wouldn't I come? You look handsome, by the way. Tate grins at me. Thanks, and so do you, kid. And that sets me off. Kid? Who calls their date kid if they don't want to sound creepy? I shuffle around the aisle as Tate tries to look for our seat, unsure if this was a good idea. Somehow it is now that I feel the weight of our differences, age being the biggest factor. Even then, I stick with him in fear of upsetting him or worse. The movie starts soon, and I realize that Tate is a very twitchy person. His hands stick here sometimes, and sometimes there. Several times I push him off me, and he grins at me with a soft, sorry, and then we return to the movie. And then instead of watching the stupid movie, I think how nice it would have been to have Andrew with me right now. I know he will make everything better. He will even perhaps swallow this imminent feeling of loneliness that I often feel nowadays. But until then, I try to cope with him. The next day. Please tell me nothing happened between you two. Andrew begs, walking up and down the room. If something did, I am informing an adult. I'm sorry, Cooper, but this is something I will definitely do. Nothing happened, I tell him. You need to chill. He's my boyfriend. Things are going to happen someday. Yes, but not now. He insists and then pursues his lips. You know better. Oh, do I? I taunt him and then feel guilty about it. It's not his fault that I am unstable and seeking solace in the arms of a stranger. One who is at least 5 years older than me. If my parents heard this, they are surely going to make my life a living hell. I'm sorry, I tell him then. Andrew sighs and puts his head in my lap. It's alright. How about we get something? Pizza, is that alright? Or do you want burgers? Burgers alright. Andrew grins at me. I am ordering 2 for you, Cooper. You gotta eat. You're thin as hell. Thanks for telling me how I look. Over the course of the next few weeks, obviously, Tate keeps on proving Andrew right. He says and does things that I know shouldn't be done. In fear that Andrew may go batshit crazy, I decided to keep most of these things to myself. Until one day. I have only recently told Andrew that Tate and I often kiss now, and he did not look very amused by that information. In fact, he looked positively furious. I do not understand it, he tells me. Why can't you date someone of our age? I found him first. I shrug at him. Cooper, how old is he? He asks me. I shrug again, only now realizing how stupid it looks. I don't know. You don't know? You don't know how old your boyfriend is. Andrew throws his hands in the air. I must let someone know of this, Cooper. What if he tries to do something and I'm not there? Well, I'm not a helpless kid, I snap at him. I can protect myself. Andrew looks guilty at that. Of course you can. I'm not saying that you cannot, but... And then he says nothing else. In all honesty, it is probably because of me that he doesn't. I've been nothing but aloof to all of his gracious and logical statements. If anything bad happens to me tomorrow, I know it happened because of no one but myself. And then days after that realization, the first unforgivable thing happens. I'm at Tate's place during one of our dates, and he has rolled in another movie. That's one thing that Tate does a lot. Watching movies, and so most of the time we do nothing but watch movies. It's something infuriating, but also nice because then I do not have to worry about Tate getting handsy. Until today. Today, he does not look in any mood to actually focus on it, and his hands trail over me more than they usually do, even though he does not touch me inappropriately. Have you ever thought of going further? He asks. Further? Where? Tate grins at me as if he's amused by my reply. Taking the step forward, doing more than just kissing. I shift next to him. I haven't thought of that. Now that's a lie. He replies and runs a hand through my hair. He hasn't done anything wrong, but I feel uncomfortable anyway. You have to know that point will come in our relationship someday too. Well, I don't want to do anything with you right now, so what's the point? Tate's smile drops. He clicks his tongue. Whatever, I'm not going to force you. That'd be a major turnoff. And though he said nothing of the sort again, he acted mean and distant for the rest of the night. When we fell asleep, he slept a little away from me and said good night in such a dispassionate tone that I wanted to do nothing but hit him right across his jaw. His meanness was getting through me, and I slept with tears sliding down my cheeks. The next day when Andrew asks me if something happened, I tell him everything. A few days later. Passive-aggressive kind of shit. Andrew mutters and snaps his laptop shut. He was searching through information about police academies, and I was lying on his bed, doing absolutely nothing. It's been a few days since I told him about what happened with Tate, and he isn't any less angry than he was then. Your parents will freak out if they hear you cussing, I comment. Oh, fuck that. I don't care about that. You tell me what you are going to do. I shrug at him, a response that seems to get on his nerves. Don't shrug at me, Cooper. You're not getting out of this. I'm not trying to, I tell him. You sound dismissive. It's my situation. I'm allowed to sound dismissive if I want to. In every other situation, you are allowed to do that, Cooper. Andrew sighs, and I can see that little tilt in his head, the one that always indicates that he is extremely tired and needs sleep. But in this one, you cannot just shake your head at it and move on with your life. Your boy Tate sounds like a manipulative loser. He's ignoring you because you said that you are not ready for sex. Is that what a nice boyfriend is supposed to sound like? It's not that I consider him nice, I reply in a soft tone. Then why? Why are you with him? It's been weeks, Cooper. You know better than me that he isn't a good guy. Why are you wasting your time and energy on him? Because it's been weeks with him. I grab one of the pillows and put it on my chest. I've grown familiar with his presence. I've grown comfortable with the situation. And I know a little more time, I will be okay with it too. Adjustment requires time. I shrug at him. Andrew, for the longest minute, doesn't say anything at all. You've grown comfortable with an abusive relationship? He finally asks. I look at him and catch the same emotions in his eyes that I know I have in mine. It feels natural to be with him, I tell him. It's the same at home, with mom and dad, and it's the same with Tate. It's normal. Even to my own ears, I sound stupid and irrational. Andrew shakes his head. I am not letting you meet him again. You're not my dad. I am your best friend. So act like a best friend and stop feeling jealous. Why would I be... Cooper, do you want me to feel jealous? I sniff at him and then move my face away. I do not have the courage to face him after that. Please don't say anything. Is there something I should know, Cooper? Andrew asks. Why are you with Tate? I know you don't love him. I know you don't like him either. Then why are you with him? The tears that threaten down my cheeks are right on the edge. Is there something that I should know? Andrew asks, and a dam bursts through. I love you, alright? I scream at him, something that I rarely do. Andrew looks stunned and stays rooted in his spot, looking at me with those wide, blue eyes of his. I love you, and I always wanted to run away from that damn house, from my damn parents. I needed a safe space, and you gave me that safe space. Then I fell in love with you like some loser, but I knew I couldn't tell you that because I didn't want to lose you. I need you in my life, Andrew. And is that why you decided to date Tate? I nod at him. He was a stranger, and I didn't need to tell him anything. I thought he'd be my boyfriend, and things would finally look good for us. But he constantly proves me wrong, and I don't know what to do about it. By now, I am crying. My face is beet red, and it's so warm. I may as well have a fever. And Andrew is still standing in front of me like a statue. That bit scares me more than anything else. What if he's upset? Maybe I should have kept my mouth shut. I have done it for so long, I could have done it longer. But the confession is out, and I'm not sure what to do about it. Or about Andrew's silence. Fearing the worst after 10 minutes of pin-drop silence, I sniffle and get out of the bed. I better go home. I tell him. No, stay. Andrew says and grabs a hold of my wrist. Then he goes silent once again, and I have no clue what is happening. Andrew? I'm sorry if I upset you. I didn't mean to put this on you. You haven't. He says, and there's a strained tone in the words. I am glad you told me how you feel because I feel the same for you, Cooper. That stuns me so much that I cannot help but stare at him wide-eyed. What? Andrew nods at me. So foolish of us to fear for our friendship when we love each other in the same way. His eyes are bright and earnest, but I do not miss the little shakiness in his frame and words. I dismiss them, though, because Andrew never lies to me. He has never done that before, and I know he will never do that in the future. So, by that means, his confession is real. Do you like me for real? I ask. Andrew nods at me. For real. He runs his free hand over my hair like he always does, and I melt in his touch. I'm so glad we know that now. We've wasted enough time not being close. And kissing. I tell him and then hug him. Andrew looks just a tad bit stiff when I press a kiss against his cheek, but I tell myself that it's probably because of his shy nature, even though he is anything but shy by nature. When I pull back to look at him, he gives me a grin. Cooper, break up with him, will you? I nod at him. I will. He smiles and then presses a familiar kiss on my forehead, a habit he picked up when we met each other for the first time, given my circumstances and our height difference. To feel that it hasn't changed even now feels so familiar that I cannot help but consider this a safe space too. A few days later, I inform Tate that I don't want to be with him the same night. He gives me angry replies at first and then finally ends the conversation with a small thumbs down before blocking me. When he does that, I show Andrew my phone, and he nods in approval with a small grin etched on his handsome face. I am glad he didn't give you any trouble. He isn't really like that. I tell him and put my phone away. He's just a little manipulative and a lot touchy. Andrew gives me a grim look. Sure, Cooper. That sounds like such a nice person. I give him a small smile and then drop myself halfway across his lap. Should we go out today? On our first date? We have to make it official, right? Andrew shifts on the bed, as if uncomfortable. A thought tugs at my heart, but I push it away in fear that I will not be able to deal with it right now. Not right now when my parents have freshly broken into another set of arguments. Am I heavy? I ask, trying to lighten the mood. Andrew snorts then, and I relax at the familiar expression on his face. You? Heavy? You're light as a feather. I roll my eyes at him. Oh, come on. I'm not that light. Sure. Whatever helps you sleep at night, baby. A few days later, it's lunch break. Andrew and I are sitting in a secluded corner of the school with me draped halfway across his body. It's a nice feeling to be finally so close to him in ways that I've always wanted. It almost feels like I deserve it, this touch and this kindness. I finally feel happy, a fact that I often tell Andrew whenever I feel the happiest around him. My parents are talking about divorce again, I tell him and play with his fingers.
They have been talking about divorce for 4 years now. Andrew blows the cigarette smoke away and then throws it away. If a teacher found him smoking, his parents are going to have a field day at the school. I wish they separate already. Half of the problems will be resolved like that. But it isn't so easy, I tell him, and then pull away from him to look into his eyes. I have always wanted to kiss you when you smoke, I confess. Andrew looks a little shocked and starts giggling. You said you hate the smell of it, he exclaims in mock delight. A furrow comes between my eyebrows. But I still want to kiss you. All right, he tells me, but does not move an inch. I decide to take matters into my own hands and move close to kiss him. At the last possible moment, however, Andrew pulls back with a small huff. I don't think now's the right time, and then points ahead somewhere. I do not turn to see what he's pointing at, but I feel doubtful anyway. How real was his confession to me?
A few days later. Things are getting saucy at my home. I informed Andrew earlier that day, "Can I live with you for a while?" And Andrew had grinned at me and said, "Why not?" But I now bet he is probably regretting that. Andrew's parents, Matthew and Cynthia, were worried when I walked into their home and informed them of the issues at home. They asked if they could help in any way. I told them that my mom had promised that she would take care of the issue now. I don't know what she means by that, I tell them, but I'm sure it will end soon. But now that it's past midnight and Andrew and I are still awake, I cannot help but wonder how much he hates the thought that I am in the same room as him. Earlier this morning, I had been daydreaming about kissing Andrew left and right, and now all seemed lost. "You're always distant from me," I comment, tears in my eyes. "You always act like you hate being around me. Not when we are best friends, but whenever I make a move. I cannot even kiss you without you acting stiff and making stupid fucking excuses. So tell me, Andrew, do you love me? Are you even gay?" For his part, Andrew only replies with a small, "I'm trying, Cooper." What about the confession? Did you say that only because you hate Tate? Andrew swallows at that, and I cannot help but feel heartbroken because I know something's wrong. "I'm sorry," he says, "but I had to say that to save you from that asshole." That stuns me so much that I don't say anything for a while. "Cooper?" Andrew calls. "You lied to me." I choke on my words. "You told me you love me, but you were lying to me. You have never lied to me before, Andrew. So why did you lie about something this big?" "I had to save you." "Keep that savior complex to yourself and fucking choke on it." I burst into tears after that and bury my face in my hands to not make any noise. Andrew's parents are sleeping, and I did not want to face them right now. "Cooper, you're my best friend," Andrew tells me. "I couldn't see you spiraling down the same road as your parents. I had to do something." "And you lied to me." "I had no other option. You weren't listening." I shake my head and suck on my bottom lip. "I'm going home. I'd rather live with my dad than stay here any longer." Andrew stands between the bedroom door and me. "I'm not letting you go there. It's not safe there." "And is it safe here?" I seethe at him. "Safer here than there," he replies. "I tried to protect you." He continues and sounds so frickin' sad that I walk away from him and sit down on the bed. I know I should have done it in some other way, but I couldn't think of anything at that time. I had to bring you away from him. "You've broken my heart," I tell him. Andrew swallows, and I see tears in his eyes. "I know, and I'm sorry." "Are you even gay, Andrew?" Andrew shakes his head, and I burst into tears again. The next day, I try to return to my home, but the situation at home is still so bad that it doesn't seem like a habitable place. My mom shouts at me that I should stay somewhere else right now because she's returning to her own mom's house for a while, and that she cannot take me with her because I had the last months of school still left. Dejected, I sit in the little park 45 minutes away from my house until late evening when Andrew's dad, Matthew, finds me there and brings me with him, the same day that Andrew did all those years ago. And that's how I ended up back in Andrew's bedroom and on his bed. I will move out the moment Mom returns. Andrew sighs behind me. "Okay, Cooper." To be continued. Do you think heartbreak in a friendship hurts more than from a breakup? Thanks for watching. And hey, consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force. And be sure to go and check out our Ko-Fi page as well. Stay wholesome.